Hello, class. So this first video, it's not really a lecture, but what I wanted to go through is a few things that you need to know about really prior to starting the class. And I'm going to show you a few things, a few resources, and then I'm going to open up the article that I posted and that I'm going to ask you all to read. And we're going to go through it, and I'm going to kind of point out a few of the key components of the article and talk a little bit about how to interpret it, and then allow you to then be able to do the assignment this week, which is to create a summary of this first article. Okay? So the first thing I wanted to show you and talk to you about was about the library access. So in this course, you will need to access research articles. Now, I would assume that if you just physically went to the library, you would have an easy time doing what I'm going to show you or introduce to you. But you also have the option of accessing the library archives online. Okay, so I'm going to talk through a couple things that you're going to need to do in order to do that. So what I'm going to open up here on my screen is the weekly content course folder. This is week 2. So I have down here in the bottom 2 documents that were sent to me by an individual who works at the library on campus. Okay, so if you want to access the research archive online, you're going to need to have a what they call a barcode assigned to you. Okay, so this form here, actually the bottom one, the ID registration form, you'll need to open it. So I'm going to open it and show you what it looks like. And you basically just need to fill this out and submit it. It's going to ask you a few questions, your major, your name. I'm not really sure why it asks for your address. And then you'll submit this to, let me see if I can pull this up, this individual. You know what, I'll make an announcement and post her email because I didn't realize it wasn't on here. But there's an individual who works at the library. She's very helpful with doing this paperwork. So if you want to access the databases online, you'll need to fill out this form, send it to her, okay? She will then email you back with a barcode, which is like a 10-digit number, okay? Once you get that, you will then want to look at this other form, the Off-Campus Access Help document, which is here. And this one is a series of steps that will, well, this is my barcode. That'll walk you through how to access the database, okay? So what I'll do next week, I'm going to open the video with showing you exactly how to find articles on the database, okay? Since a lot of you won't be able to do this week, I'm not going to include that in this week's video. And we're not to the point necessarily yet in the class where you need to find your research article yet. Now, if you have access and you want to go ahead and do it, you're more than welcome to, okay? In fact, I am going to show you really quick another option for accessing articles, and that's to use a special Google search called GoogleScholar. All right, so I'm just going to open up another tab here on my computer. I'm going to type in GoogleScholar in the search bar. The link's going to pop up, then I'm going to open that. So it looks very much like the regular Google search engine, but it has the word scholar after it, okay? So this will bring up good research. You know, I told you I don't want you to do a basic internet research, or sorry, a basic internet search, because you might not get a scholarly article. However, if you use the Google Scholar option, which I'm showing you now, you will get scholarly articles. Okay, so let's just pick a topic. Let's just say that I'm interested in resistance training, for my article. So I'm going to type that in. Okay, so you'll notice there's a lot that comes up. This topic is too broad. We'll talk about that in a second, but it will pop up some books, okay, which we're not going to use. But if you notice, like the second thing that's listed, this tells you the author here. This is the title of the article at the top, author, what journal the article is in, and the year, okay? Down here, the next one, again, we have the title. There's multiple authors. It says the journal article name, or sorry, the journal name, and then we have the year, okay? So I typed in something very broad for a reason, because, you know, there would be like thousands of articles that would come up, okay? So what we want to do, and what I want you all to do, is narrow your topic a little bit more, okay? So what I'm going to do is modify my search slightly, and I'm going to type in adaptations. And let's do that. Resistance training adaptations that occur in the heart. So now we have articles that come up that are a lot more focused on a specific topic, right? Resistance training on its own is a huge topic. What I want you all to do for your articles and then for your research presentation is to try to make the topic as specific as possible, okay? And that's why I'm asking you to especially for the research presentation, send me your idea so I can help you narrow it down if necessary, because if you search something as general as resistance training, a huge amount of research is going to pop up, okay? So did we find anything that matches my search? Now this first one is about a specific disease. That's not exactly what I was looking for. Let's scroll on down. Again, here's another one for heart failure. What I had more in mind was, how does the heart adapt? Now this one is looking at fetal development, so that's again not exactly what I was looking for there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. Check out the next couple pages. You notice that certain topics are going to have a lot of research. Heart failure is a very well researched disease, so there's a lot of articles that are going to pop up with regard to heart failure, which is again not what I'm necessarily looking for. Here's another one, disease-related, heart disease. This one is more what I'm looking for, but it's looking at rats, and I'm not interested in that. I want humans, okay? So, and that's something I probably didn't mention to you all in the introduction. I want your articles to be about research done on humans, not lab animals. Okay, now this is one that I could look at. So we have cardiovascular adaptations to resistance training in elderly postmenopausal women. Now that's a very specific population. Not exactly what I had in mind, but here's what we can do. All right, if I click on this, now before I click on it, I'm going to look to see if it's available, because not every article on Google Scholar will be available. But if there's something written over on the right and it says something like PDF ResearchGate, this should be available for you to download the entire article. So I'm going to click on this and see what happens. Looks like the PDF did pop up down here. Let's see if it actually... Okay, so it looks like it's 9 pages, so we did indeed get the entire article. Now, when was this one written? I didn't know. This is good. This is actually, is that right? 2013. So it's, you know, it's a little old. I would prefer you all to try to find articles that were done in the year 2000 and later. Not something from like the 1980s. But what I could do if I'm having trouble finding an article that fits my specific topic If I find something that's similar, an easy thing you can do is then scroll to the end of that first article and look at the references, because the authors of this article have 49 references that they cite, okay? So if I scan this reference list, and I'm not going to do this right now, but my point is you might be able to find an article that is referenced that is what you're looking for, okay? So let me just recap what happened. If you do a search and you cannot find exactly what you're looking for, find something that's close to what you're looking for, open up that article, and then look at the references of that article to see if you can find exactly what you're looking for. Now, you may not be able to. That's part of it. This is sort of like a, it's a treasure hunt in a way. You're wading through the sea of papers trying to find something that really sparks your interest or something that you're specifically looking for, okay? At the stage we are right now in this class, I don't suspect you're going to have like a specific need, but rather you're looking for something that meets an area of interest for yourself, okay? Either way is fine, but I kind of just think that's probably where most of you are at this time, okay? So that is, Google Scholar is a pretty handy, it's a pretty handy tool. The downside is, as I mentioned, is you may not be able to get full access to every single article that's listed here, okay? On the other hand, when I show you how to use the library website, your library has paid to have access to these journals, right? So if you clicked on something on Google Scholar, it might tell you have to buy the article. Well, I'm not asking you to do that for sure. Your library has a subscription to most of these journals, so they've already paid for access. So when you search for the article through the library website, it should be available to you for free, okay? So if you're a little antsy and you want to get started using Google Scholar, or if you already know how to use the library website, you can do that. But if not, we'll cover the library website searches next week, okay? So the last thing I wanted to do today then is to go back here. And we're going to talk about the article that I posted, okay? So the article that I am going to ask you all to read and summarize is called The Metabolic Cost of Rope Training. And what they're talking about are battle ropes, okay? Now, let me give you just a quick background about why I was interested in this article. As I mentioned, I owned a gym. And when you own a gym, especially I had like a group fitness business, you want to try to get new equipment that the clients will enjoy using, but equipment that is also has a lot of documented benefits, right? So for example, like something like, I don't know if you all know what the Basu ball is. It's like it's a half of a ball on a base. It's a cool tool, but it doesn't really have any research-backed benefits for it, okay? Now, the battle ropes, on the other hand, are something that it was a new device, probably like 8 to 10 years ago. People found it to be pretty fun to use. It had a lot of different activities you could do with it. So what I wanted to do was to see if there was any research out there that showed the effectiveness of using this specific tool to improve fitness, etc. Okay, so I was able to find this great article. So let's open it up. All right, so what we're going to do is sort of break down the structure of the article first and not really get into the message that it's bringing. Okay, so when we open up a research article, depending upon the journal that the article is in, it might look a little bit different, but it's going to be pretty similar. So here at the top, we have the title of the article. So in this case, Metabolic Cost of Rope Training. Underneath, we have the two authors of the article. okay? There might be 1, there might be 10. It just kind of depends on how many people worked on the study, okay? In this particular case, it tells you where each of these gentlemen are currently employed. So they're both presumably at universities, one in Minnesota, one in Nebraska. Next, we have what they call the abstract, okay? So the abstract represents, and it's actually just this paragraph here, a quick summary of everything, okay? So what I would recommend is when you are trying to find an article, you know, the first thing you're going to look at is the title, obviously. If the title checks the box, open up the article, read the abstract, okay? Because the abstract is going to quickly summarize everything. You might find when you read the abstract that it's not exactly what you thought it was. And in that case, you just ditch the article, find a new one. If you like what the abstract is saying, then you might read further, okay? So before we look at what our next step would be, let's take a look at what the abstract says. So in the abstract, again, it's going to tell you sort of this is the full reference, okay, right here. So Fontaine and Schmidt, then it has the title, Metabolic Cost of Rope Training. It lists the journal that this article is found in. So in this case, this abbreviation is the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, which is a journal put out by the NSCA. The NSCA is who makes the textbook for the Essentials of Strength Conditioning book, okay? So this is a very, very well respected journal in the strength and conditioning and fitness environment, okay? Then it has the edition in the, sorry, I can't think of the name. What is this called? 29.4 is like the volume and the edition. Sorry, that just escaped my mind for a second. And then it has the page numbers that the article is located in this specific edition. And then it has the year that this article was published, okay? So this, and I'll show you all this again, but that is exactly how you need to construct your bibliography. When we do the research literature review presentation later in the semester, and I ask you to create and submit a bibliography first, all of your references should look exactly like this right here. Okay, so after that, essentially it's going to summarize the 4 parts of the article. Each research article that is over a single study has 4 parts. Introduction, methods, results, discussion, okay? Each of those 4 parts is going to be summarized in about 2 sentences here in the abstract, okay? So the first couple sentences is going to tell you the background of why this topic is being researched, and then finish with telling you the exact purpose of this study. Okay, so let's read that. The purpose of this study was to quantify the cardiovascular and metabolic cost from an acute 10-minute bout of rope training. Okay, so that right there finishes the summary of the introduction. Next, we're going to summarize the methods. The methods is going to tell you exactly how the study was conducted. Okay, the methods basically is going to represent like a recipe for the study. So if I wanted to replicate this study in my own lab, the methods in this article would tell me exactly what to do, okay? And so in the abstract, the methods is going to be summarized pretty quickly. So it's going to tell you who the participants are, 11 physically active, what equipment they used, 15.2 meter rope, and then what they did, 10-minute protocol, 15 seconds of waves, 45 seconds rest, etc. Okay. It's then going to tell you essentially what they measured during the protocol, and this is the end of the summary of the methods. Okay. Following that, they're then going to summarize the results. So here it tells you about heart rates, VO2s, energy expenditure, etc. okay? It doesn't interpret the data, it just tells you what the data was that they measured in this study, okay? Then lastly, the last part of the abstract is a summary of the discussion. Now the discussion is the part of the article where the results are interpreted, okay? And also then where they speculate on maybe why things happened, why things didn't happen, and then they ultimately should culminate in telling you how to apply what was learned, okay? So let's just read what they write here at the end of the abstract. The results of this study suggest an acute 10-minute bout of rope training in a vigorous intensity workout, resulting in high heart rates and energy expenditure, which meets previously established thresholds known to increase cardiorespiratory fitness. So what they're saying is the protocol they conducted is sufficient to increase cardiorespiratory fitness, right? So it's an effective tool to use to improve the fitness in a group fitness class, okay? Which is, that's the information I was looking for when I was deciding if I should include battle ropes in my fitness classes, okay? So that, again, is the abstract. So let's say that you found this article, you were interested in battle ropes. When you read the abstract, you think, okay, this is the article I'm going to read, so I'm going to proceed with it, okay? However, if you were looking for something else, let's just say that you were looking for how does battle rope training affect lactic acid levels in the body? Well, when you read the abstract, you find out that lactate was not measured during this protocol. Therefore, this article does not give us the information that we need, and we would need then to find another article. Okay. Now, if that happened, we could do what I talked about 5 minutes ago. You could scroll to the end and look at the citations or the references. Again, I'm not going to take time to do this, but what we could do if we were looking for lactate concentrations and how they're affected by battle ropes, we could just scan the list here and see if anything like that is listed in any of these titles that we see this paper uses as references, okay? All right, so let's move on then to the actual article itself. So the first major component, like I said, is the introduction. What the introduction is going to do is going to accomplish a few things, okay? It's going to basically introduce the problem, okay? And the problem is really looking to answer why are they doing this particular study, okay? So for example, they're going to open up this article by saying that it's a common challenge of trainers to pick exercises to not only meet a training goal, but to also serve as a novel challenge, which is a new challenge for clients, okay? It's imperative for a trainer to find unique and innovative techniques because if you do the same thing all the time with your clients, they're going to get bored and they're going to go somewhere else, okay? So what the introduction does in this case, and this is pretty common, is it introduces the need for the study that the article is going to talk about, okay? Usually that is done in a paragraph, okay? So you notice here's the first part of the paragraph ends here, okay? Then the second part of the introduction is to sort of talk about briefly summarize the existing body of research about this specific problem, okay? So here we have a bunch of citations that were used in the introduction to talk about different modalities that have been used in the past, things that have been researched, okay? Looking to solve this problem of finding novel yet effective training modalities. So kettlebells. At one time they were new and they were effective. Sandbags, yes, new and effective. Bodyweight suspension training devices like a TRX, new and effective, okay? So what they've done here is they've cited in the past, research was done to prove all of these other things worked, okay? So then the next paragraph is going to look at, well, yes, there is a lot of research that's been done, but there's a gap in the research. There is something missing in the existing body of research, and that's what we're going to tackle, right? So here they basically they say that battle ropes, they're a thing now, but they're a relatively new modality, okay? So they're admitting that there's this new kid on the block, so to speak, that has not been well researched, okay? So there is some research about battle ropes, and they're going to talk about that here, okay? Because you always want to give credit where credit is due, I should say, in research, okay? So that's the next part of the introduction. And then essentially the introduction is going to finish by telling you exactly what the purpose of this particular paper is. Okay, so notice right here, it says, however, actually, let's back up. While many professionals use rope training, there is no published research that documents blah, 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 okay? So what it identified a gap in the research, and that's what the introduction sort of finishes with, okay? So we have established a background, what's currently there, what's missing, and now what we're going to do about it, okay? So those are your 4 components of your introduction, okay? So when you're summarizing the introduction here, I want you to basically give me like a sentence per thing. What it is, what's been done in the past, what's missing, what this article is going to do, okay? So moving on to the second component, now we have our methods, okay? Now often the methods, like I said, the methods is a recipe where if Professor Jett wanted to go to my lab at the University of Louisville and conduct this exact same study, the methods section should tell me exactly how to do it, okay? So it gives me, a lot of times there are tables that show you like subject characteristics, for example. So what this tells us is they had 11 subjects, okay? There were both males and females. It tells us their age overall, and then males and females, okay? So they're pretty similar. The average height of total subjects, average height males versus females, no surprise the males were taller. And then the average body mass of the subjects overall, males being 91.2 average, females being 62.8. So you can see that, because there's such a big disparity here, if they just gave us the total, that could be very misleading, okay? So they give us a further breakdown in terms of male versus female, just to give us more information about who the subjects are, what their characteristics are, okay? A lot of times the subjects will be listed first. In this particular article, they give you the approach to the problem first. So what they do here is they tell you about this exact protocol that they're going to use, okay? So they're going to perform a 10-minute workout. Each minute of the 10 minutes has a work and a rest component. So 15 seconds of work, doing the rope undulation or wave, followed by 45 seconds of rest, okay? And they're going to repeat that for 10 repetitions, and that's going to take 10 minutes, okay? During that, they're going to measure heart rate, lactate, resting oxygen uptake, and EPOC, okay? Now, actually, that's weird because in the results, it didn't say anything about lactate, but they actually did measure it. That tells me they didn't find a lot of difference, so they didn't even report it, okay? Okay, so we know what the protocol looks like, generally. Then here they go into more detail about the subjects. They mention, again, the ages, heights, and weights. They do say that 8 of them were former college athletes. All 11 were physically active individuals, okay? So that's important because training status can greatly influence the results of a study. You want to identify if you're using untrained or trained subjects or a combination of both. In this article, they did use trained subjects. And then they culminate down here in talking about the fact that the study was approved by the IRB, which is the Institutional Review Board. All of the subjects did sign informed consents, etc. So that's a pretty common thing to include in a methods section. Okay. Then, lastly, they're going to talk about the exact procedure. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go through this one by one, but a lot of this will talk about like equipment that was used, how the equipment was calibrated, the specific brand of equipment, because again, the methods should tell any person off the street how to exactly replicate this study. So you would want to know what the battle rope they used was created by a company called the Rope Factory. Okay. What else is a good thing to point out? So the metabolic cart that they used is the Parvomedics True One, produced in Sandy, Utah. Now, if any of you all had my class last semester for exercise physiology, that's the exact same metabolic cart that we use in my lab at U of L. And I think you all actually have one at CSU now as well. Okay. It tells you the brand of the lactate analyzer that was used. Okay. So, I mean, it gets down very detailed. Now, when you're summarizing this, you don't have to go into those details. Okay. You can just tell me, you know, give me a quick snapshot of the participants, who they are. Give me a quick summary of the protocol, and then you can give me a quick summary of which physiological variables were measured during the test. So heart rate, VO2, lactate, etc. All right, so component 3 is the results, okay? Now, a lot of times the results can be more easily displayed in a table, and that is what is done up above here. So everything that was measured is listed here as a variable, okay? And it's giving you the average values for the entire subject population, the average values for the males, the average values for the females, and then the p-value tells you basically if it achieves statistical significance, okay? So statistical significance is achieved at a level greater than 0.0045. So anything higher than that number is statistically significant. So like this one is, but this one is not, okay? So that's probably why some of the variables were not reported on, because they did not achieve statistical significance. Now, I actually said that backwards, so let me back up. If it's less than this number, it's statistically significant, right? So the only ones that did achieve statistical significance were this one, and this one. This one did as well. The rest of them did not. So that's why, again, lactate was not reported as a outcome, because the measurement did not achieve statistical significance, okay? So I apologize for getting that backwards. It has to be under that number. Now, that will be summarized up here. Oops, sorry, wrong way. The results, again, is just going to be basically all the data is going to be listed, right? There's not going to be any interpretations, but it's all sort of listed here, written out. And you notice this is a pretty short section. But again, all of this is summarized in this table here, okay? So notice here it says male subjects demonstrated significantly greater differences than females in these, okay? So significantly greater, that's a key word, significant. If it's not significant, then that tells you that the protocol did not work. But if it is a significant difference, that means the protocol was effective. Okay, so that word significant is critically important when you're reading the results of a study. Okay, so what you might do for your summary is just list the things that did have a significant difference. You don't have to list the things that were not significantly different. Lastly, then, the discussion. Usually the discussion is kind of the longest portion of a paper because it allows then the authors to interpret the data, what they found. It's also going to allow them to speculate on what they might do different, okay? And that's a key thing because you want to look for the author admitting that there are limitations, okay? Because every study is going to have limitations. And if an author tries to say there are no limitations, that's a red flag that the article might not be, or the study may not have been done very well, because there are always going to be limitations. Let's see if we can find that here. Right here, boom. This study is not without limitations. So look, they're going to list a bunch of things. Let's read a couple of them. First, the sample size was small. Yes, 11 subjects is not a huge sample size. The larger the sample size is, the more significance the study could potentially bring. Okay, so that's a common limitations. They also admitted that their population was not super diverse, right? Which is not a bad thing, honestly, because you kind of have to start with a smaller, more homogeneous population. But the results of this study, we can't necessarily apply it to the population as a whole. We could only apply it to the population that this study used, which is physically active young adults with an intercollegiate athletic background, okay? Now, while the results may apply to the population as a whole, we really can't use this study to say it does. We can only say this study applies to the specific population used in this study, okay? So that's a limitation that's basically should be found in almost every study that's done. Second, so they used a standard rope for everyone. If you all have ever used battle ropes before, you know that they can be pretty heavy. The longer the rope is, the heavier it is. So subjects who are not as strong, they might struggle to move the rope, okay? If biomechanically it's awkward to move the rope because it's so heavy, that's going to elevate the energy expenditure and the oxygen cost. So that could have a negative impact on the results, okay? Additionally, this study only used the double arm wave method. So they only use one method for rope waves when there are many, okay? So again, the point is a good study should list its limitations. Limitations are okay because every study is going to have them. They just need to say them, okay? So you might mention those in the summary. And then ultimately, and I think this is the most valuable thing, honestly, when I'm looking at a research article, I go straight to this. What are the practical applications? Because this is sort of the take-home message from the whole article. And what this take-home message is that rope training does provide a sufficient stimulus to elevate heart rate and energy expenditure in a fashion that is consistent with producing gains in fitness, okay? So therefore, I would say I could use this protocol to increase the fitness of my gym members, okay? Because again, that's kind of that's really when you're looking at research from a practical perspective, you want to know, well, how can I use this in the gym, right? That's what you want to know. So the practical applications, a couple sentences is very valuable, okay? Then there might be some acknowledgments, not really anything to worry about for your summary, but, if they want to thank anybody, that's a pretty common that you would do if you wrote a book or whatever. And then lastly, the references are here. So notice this paper, it's short, it's only 5 pages, but it has 30 references, okay? It's worth me pointing out that, when you're writing scientific writing or when you're producing scientific writing, you have to back up everything that you say with a reference, all right? So For your research presentation, I'm only asking you all to have 10 to 12 references, just to kind of limit you from a time perspective. But it's not uncommon if you were producing a presentation to give where you would need 25 to 30 references, okay? So I'm going to wrap it up there. Again, after you've watched this summary, read the article, okay? And then you will click on the assignment here, and you can just put your summary directly into the submission box, or you can attach it as a separate Word document, okay? So that's going to do it for this week. Next week, we're going to look at, how to search the library, and I'm going to give you some more information about, how to find good articles, and then also we'll talk a little bit about, again, how to create your citation for your article, and that's what you're going to submit for assignment 3 after you actually find your article, okay? So that's Professor Jet signing off for this week. I'll talk to you all again next week. Goodbye.